It's now time to turn to the papers for you on Global Morning. Let's see what the Tribune has for us with a big story on the front page of it, and Queen will bring you a few other papers in the course of these segments. Let's see. It says, review your policies to reduce hardship. NLC tells Tinubu. That story has got some riders. Says, listening to World Bank, IMF has never helped the country. Wants FG to expedite process of negotiating new minimum wage. Government to discuss with Labour in March. That's according to Information Minister. You can read it up on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune today. But let's take you to headlines just above the big story. Ondo Assembly confirms Adelami as Deputy Governor. Ganduje woos Kano Governor to join APC. That's like a long thing. Supreme Court affirms Sokoto Rivers Taraba State's governor's election. And then above the nameplate it says Plateau killings, police arrest 17, reps speaker to meet Tinubu. Don't take laws into your hands, governor warns. Atiku raises 5 questions over NNPCL's $3.3 billion emergency loan, and the writer says federal government may repay $12 billion. And that will make an interesting read, no doubt about it. But if you look at the left end, the left corner of the front page of today's issue of the Nigerian Tribune, one headline here says Nigeria spent 14.8 trillion naira on security in 9 years. That's according to PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. All right, at least 7 trends that will shape Nigeria's economy in 2024. Permanent solution to insecurity is here. Northern leaders. What is that solution? Well, you can find out on page 28 of today's Tribune. Ijoy Youth Council threatens to shut down shell operation as clerk charges plots or the alleges plot to colonize Ijoy's orders. Southwest PDP now fully united. Makinde, other party leaders say Oyo Osun governors jointly attend party zonal meeting for the first time. All right, Adisha Fair now Southwest chairman. Okay, Lagos smiles investments in airline operations. Someone who renders stewardship in town hall meeting. Okay, so those are stories for you, basically from today's Tribune. Queen has the next paper, which is the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, quite a number of stories from the Tribune newspaper. So for Daily Trust, we have the big story, masses are losers of Tinubu's reforms, Labour. Now, underneath it says FG running prodigal economy. President desirous of making life better for all. This coming from the Information Minister. How is time to interrogate renewed hope agenda? Kabiru Yusuf. There should be consequences for failure. Shamsuddin Usman is saying, and FG must listen to citizens' perspective. This coming from Jega. And then above the big story, we have Gaza war, ICJ to deliver order on South Africa's application today. And then we have Northern youths demand Keyamo, CBN governor's sack over relocation of agencies. And then we have attempted cattle rustling, major cause of fresh plateau crisis. Now, underneath the big story, we have police, vigilante, gunned down, kidnapper, rescue 14 victims in FCT. I'm excited about this story when I hear reports like
Looks like
this.
A breakthrough story.
It's like a breakthrough story. And then we have $3.3 billion emergency loan. You owe Nigerians explanation, Atiku tells Tinubu. Interesting. Lastly, I think that's all for...
There's one under that. It says a woman jailed 7 years for promoting prostitution.
Okay, woman jailed.
I think these are stories that should deter people from overstepping their bounds. I mean, you can't promote prostitution and expect there won't be repercussions at some point. And that's one of the lessons we're learning from this.
True.
But then we have Leadership Friday for you. Let's take a look at Leadership Friday. Okay, we'll begin from above the nameplate on Leadership Friday. If you look at it, about the nameplate, 2 headlines. One has a picture of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who was also the presidential flag bearer or candidate of the PDP in the last general election. Exchange rate, Atiku demands explanation on $3.3 billion loan. What's more, Supreme Court affirms Fubara, Kefas, Aliyu as governors. And then the Star story says, Plateau crisis, military passes the buck, blames residents. Police warn faith leaders against escalation of crisis. 17 suspects arrested, 10 bodies recovered. Nigeria security challenges severe. That's according to Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State. Recall that I was in Nigeria very recently, and he met with President Bola Tinubu, having also met with a few African leaders. And we're hearing that the U.S. now, on account of this visit, is pledging some $45 million to help support a couple of African countries, particularly with regards to insecurity. All right. FG, Labour, others disagree on economic policies. Right. Then what's more? Okay, I think that's pretty much the headlines that we've got today from Leadership Friday. Queen has this day for us.
On the front page of This Day, just above the nameplate, we have Standard Bank report predicts increase in reserves buoyed by domestic oil refinery operation. What we have underneath it is quite tiny, but you can check that out for yourself. Or can you see?
No, it says a growth potential beset by worsening FX crisis, inflation, insecurity, others. And then the second rider says forecasts Naira to officially weaken to 1,100 and 1,771 Naira to the dollar December. Okay, so that's it basically, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we have Atiku to Tinubu, you owe Nigerians explanation on 3.3 billion Naira. $3.3 billion, I beg your pardon, NNPC emergency loan. We've been seeing this quite frankly appears in all of the papers. And then we have Lagos mows over investment in airline operations. Idris, Tinubu determined to provide succor, revamp economy. This after South's court verdict, Ganduje woos Kwakwanso Yusuf Shekaru to APC. He says Kano will have unified one-party state and promises level playing field for new members, hopefully small. And then lastly, on This Day newspaper, we have Supreme Court dismisses appeals against Fubara, Kafes, Aliyu's elections.
All right, I've been waiting to look at The Guardian this morning, and here it finally is. Queen, I like The Guardian a lot because of the infographics they usually have on the front page these days. It makes it not just an interesting read, but gives you clearer, more vivid insights into what the story is about, right? Yeah. So their big story is very visible on the front page. It says, unease of doing business, how checkpoints, bad roads, block trade, spike inflation. Is The Guardian's big story. Featured across pages 4, 5, and 6. I mean, that's where you will find the details if you pick up a copy of The Guardian newspaper to read up for yourself today. Terrorists kill Imam, 2 others abduct 32 in Katsina. Sanusi backs relocation of CBN departments to Lagos. Yes, the former CBN governor referred to it as a sensible move, right? Okay, takeaway parks. Lagos maintains stance on styrofoam ban, gives 3 weeks moratorium. Atiku queries $3.3 billion emergency loan. That story is replicated across news dailies today. Ibadan explosion. FG gives security agencies 2 weeks to review reports. NLC seeks review of Tinubu's policies overrun pleasant outcomes. Nigeria needs ambitious fiscal reform to achieve sustainable growth. Okay, that's sustainable 3.1% growth. Who is saying that? Well, find details for yourself from today's issue of The Guardian newspaper. All right, so we take our next paper now.
The next paper we have is The Punch. I think I also like The Punch because of the fonts and then also the visuals on The Punch. Above the nameplate, we have Tinubu approves 50 billion naira security vote for 5 northern states. Naira drops at parallel market close 900 naira per dollar. Official window. And then Nigeria, Morocco, fast-track talks on $30 billion gas pipe. The big story on The Punch is Tinubunomics. FG differs as NLC says reforms killing Nigerians. Listening to IMF, World Bank has never helped Nigeria. NLC president tells Tinubu. President determined to make life better for citizens, says Information Minister. And then underneath, there we have the picture of Wike there, and customs sees 4 billion naira cocaine arms from South Africa. Okay, sorry, I beg your pardon. These pictures are pictures of the Nigerian custom with the seized cocaine. FG releases funds for second Niger Bridge, Lagos-Ibadan bypass. Mr. Ibo's daughter arrested for alleged theft of 55 million naira donation. And then we have U.S. court finds Nigerian bloggers $50,000 for defaming MFM overseer.
That's quite
interesting stories on The Punch.
Yes, that story on The Punch, by the way, Queen, where you have the U.S. courts fining a Nigerian blogger $50,000. It was actually a case that happened in Maryland, right, in the U.S. The ladies are alleged to have defamed not just the general overseer, but the church and some of its pastors. So 3 of the pastors in the U.S., 2 of them in Maryland, 2 different cities in Maryland, and one other one in California. All right, instituted suit against her, and long and short of the story, the judge dropped the verdict. I think that was yesterday, and she's asked to pay $50,000 in damages. But the blogger who has been accused of all of this, we are told, had also come online to post a video where she was telling her followers and all of those who care to listen that she had been sued by these persons. But then she says, look, I've never mentioned anybody's name. I've just been generic about the things I do. Yes, I'm a woman. I've got to speak up about these issues. According to her, I don't know where she got the information from, but she's got to speak for herself, which I'm sure she's already doing, by the way. That there have been instances where young girls are abused, even in restaurants, and some of them have now become depressed as a result of that. Some of them have gone suicidal, and blah, 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 blah. You see, for me, the lessons I'm taking away, especially from a professional standpoint, is even when you say you're doing investigative reporting, because everybody is a journalist now. All right, thank God for the internet. All right, so even when you say you're doing investigative reporting, it's critical how much of facts you have, how authentic, how authoritative, how verifiable are those facts. That's number one. Number two is we must also understand that with much power, because journalists have power, right? Whether you're a broadcast journalist, whether you are a traditional, conventional journalist. With much power comes so much responsibility. So the fact that you even have facts on certain issues is not a license, to go haywire, all right, to go berserk, as a colleague would say, to throw caution to the wind. It still matters how responsibly you behave yourself, you conduct your affairs, how professional you carry yourself, even with all of this information, all right, that you have at your disposal. For example, we have seen people in high places, so to speak, whether a CBN governor, a former minister, who have been accused in some cases, of having committed certain infractions, sometimes outright thefts. Some of them have just been allegations. But we've also seen some where there has been concrete, evidence. Now, the important thing is not just that you have the evidence, it is how you use the evidence and how that changes the narrative in terms of how society becomes a better place, for example. So for this lady, I think it's a lesson for bloggers all over the world, not just in the US, not just about this matter, that you have access to X, or as we used to know in Twitter, or Instagram, or LinkedIn, or Facebook. It's not a license for you to become irresponsible. Because in the final analysis, people will be held for the things that they say. They will be held to account. They must answer for themselves. All right? The fact that you know what one politician did somewhere does not mean you should become irresponsible, because two wrongs can't make a right, and he who must come to equity must come with clean hands. Because in the end, there could be litigation, and then you're asked to come and answer, and then you're blabbing, and then you don't have evidence about the things you're saying. For example, in this country, under our very nose here, we had former President Muhammadu Buhari as president. Under his leadership, the former Minister of Information in this country, Lai Mohammed, has come out to present what he called a list of looters in Nigeria. And we found a good number of prominent Nigerians, most of them politicians, some of them who had even been national chairmen of political parties, some of them former governors and so on and so forth, top-ranking senators, whether they were still in the Senate or not, who featured in that list. A particular politician who was one time national chairman of the People's Democratic Party came out and said, I have no idea why my name made it to that list. I mean, where's the evidence that I ever looted public funds? He didn't stop there. He went to court. And he won the case. And the court gave an order and said, immediately remove his name from that list. If the federal government had evidence, why didn't you go back to court to prosecute? In any case, was it enough to just release the list? I mean, of what benefit is that to the everyday Nigerian? Did you prosecute them? Did you bring evidence against them? Did the EFCC swing into action in that regard? Did the ICPC swing into action? The police has a unit for anti-corruption and stuff like that, anti-crime, money laundering and whatever it is. Why didn't all of these institutions, all right, take up that issue? So what it means is people must be careful, you know, because you want to be the first to break the news. You want to be on record that we heard it first from you, from your YouTube channel, from your Facebook timeline. In the end, it can destroy you and whatever you've spent the last few years building.
And then I like that this sort of fine is given in the U.S. and then you know that you see how social.
So you are not going to question it and say, well, maybe it was influenced or something.
Maybe he was influenced.
No, maybe the judgment was influenced or something. Maybe by MFM or by its overseer. Or the
I would say that I have. To be honest and to be frank, I haven't read that story yet. But I like that, you know, especially when you don't have evidences and all of that. I like that. I like how blogs are being regulated abroad. I wish, because you see, especially here in Nigeria, you see a whole lot of bloggers.
Everybody just coming out from everywhere and saying all sorts.
You know, defaming people. I don't think that most of these people understand the implications of some of this news that they carry, some of this information that they give out, I beg your pardon. They don't. So if we begin to have them regulated, and I want to see who regulates, you know, these bloggers, these online journalists, who regulates them. And then if we begin to see cases like this where people are held accountable for their words and their actions and the things that they say, I think we'll have less of fake news or allegations that are
baseless.
Yes, and then defaming. Sometimes, most of the time, you see that most of these people are called out, defamed quite a number of times. Majority of the time, they are, you know, they're false allegations. And so, if you're going to be calling out anybody, especially someone that is prominent, you should be prepared, have evidence, concrete evidence, and you should also be licensed. I think so.
You know, the thing is, now that we are here, maybe we just go the whole hog, right? You talked about regulation of blogs, I mean, social media handles or social media as it were, because even under former President Muhammadu Buhari, there had been that attempt to say, let's regulate social media. If you recall, Queen, that was when Twitter was banned in Nigeria. But then that's a story for another day. As it stands today, all over the world, there's no regulation for the social media. The only thing you have is censorship, which is not regulation per se. Yes. You go to the US, I mean, where you even say, okay, they have all the systems, they have all the infrastructure, they have the sophistication of technology. There's no regulation. However, what these societies have been able to do, and excellent so, is that they make you realize that to whom much is given, much is expected. So if you're set to be an influencer, maybe you're very active on X, you're very active on Facebook, you have this number of followers, you put out stuff every day, maybe on YouTube or something. What this society, like the US and others, are telling you is, look, while you're at it, know that you are responsible for the things that you put up here. And as such, you have no excuse when push comes to shove. The problem, however, is you cannot regulate. I mean, we're not able to regulate because of the way the internet is structured.
Now that's the kind of regulation I'm talking about. You see such platforms that have high number of followers, increased number of
So you
followers.
put an eye on them.
You put an eye on them because it's easier for information to disseminate faster from such bloggers.
Okay.
And then most likely other bloggers now, all those bloggers now begin to, feed from these informations and then, begin
And
to...
then
and I feel like, yes, and then if you put an
spread.
eye on these bigger bloggers, I feel like the other bloggers would take caution, knowing that, such might be the case for
them as
them,
well.
yes.
So there has to be some deterrence, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so much to say about the internet and social media, which is just an arm of the internet, right? But let's look at our last paper today, everyone. Business Day newspaper. It is just above the nameplate. It reads, Gas-rich Nigeria faces blackouts as supply shortage worsens. The writer says grid stability top priority, says TCN. That's a transmission company of Nigeria. They're talking, right? But then there's a big story on the front page of it. Dangote Rabiu Adenuga gained $15.5 billion in 3 weeks. Now we understand that the richest man in Africa, talking about Dangote, now is wealthy to the tune of $22 billion. I was going to do the math in Naira using maybe 1,000 Naira to the dollar kind of benchmark, but I know my calculator might have a problem with that. So I need to download a bit more advanced calculator. But the point we're making all of this is there was a time his wealth had dropped to as low as 17 billion. But now we hear he has moved up, having gained over $6.9 billion in the last 1 year till date. But then the cumulative earnings for both, for the three of them, Dangote, Rabiu, and Adenuga, is what comes to $15.5 billion. You know, when they mention these monies, I mean, these amounts, I'm wondering, where is all the money? But then again, this is not just about one stack of money that is stashed away somewhere. It's their assets, their investments, and everything of value, their shares and stocks and everything put together that's actually amounts to all of this wealth. But again, these are influential people. These are non-state actors, as we call them in international relations, right? And the changes that they are making, the kind of innovation they are bringing, the disruption is what is changing the face of Africa for the better. And I was reading something on LinkedIn the other day by a Nigerian professor based in the US, and he was saying that now that Dangote Cement, all right, has crossed the 1 trillion Naira mark, it shows that big companies can make a lot of difference. And as such, Nigeria needs more big companies. That the bigger the companies, and again, the more volume of such companies that we have, the better for Nigeria. And they give an instance with the US and other advanced economies, like in places like Germany, for example, in Japan and China, how that these big companies are the guys driving the, if you like, the private sector space, because they are the players. They're the ones who understand the space, and I mean, they are the ones who are able to disrupt and innovate, and they are the ones who are able to bring big funding, into tech, into all very critical segments or sectors of the economy. It turns out that's what we're leaving it this morning on the papers, everyone. But we need to also follow the money for you on the program this morning, just before I get Anthony Momodu, our anchor here at Global Television, to just give us some highlights into what the Super Eagles and their performance have been like during this AFCON so far. But first, let's join Kikelemo Okere, who brings us a business roundup.
Hello and welcome to Business Report on Global Morning. Investors in Nigeria equity market traded stock worth 3.58 trillion naira in the year 2023, a remarkable 54.3% increase from 2.32 trillion naira in 2022. The highest traded was done in July 2023 with 702.98 billion naira, while the latest trade was done in March 2023 with 146.22 billion naira. This record value of stocks traded in 2023 trails the year 2007 level, when 4.172 trillion naira stocks were traded, according to domestic and foreign portfolio investment report of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. In 2007, domestic investors traded stock worth 3.556 trillion naira, while in 2023, domestic investors traded equity worth 3.16 trillion naira. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, Taiwo Oyedele, says his committee has proposed the use of Unstructured Supplementary Service Data (USSD) and other digital channels for payment of taxes and levies across 3 tiers of government in Nigeria. Oyedele disclosed this while sharing updates on the committee activities. According to him, part of the proposal to the government is to cancel many of the current taxes that have become burdensome to the people, harmonizing the few that are justifiable, and digitize the collection process with multiple channels, including USSD, to drive efficiency, reduce leakages, and promote accountability. The USSD is a global system for mobile communication protocol that is used to send messages, currently being deployed by banks for financial services. USSD allows users to interact directly from other mobile phones by making selection from various menus. The latest report from Computer Crime Research Center has projected the cost of cybercrime will rise to $12 trillion by next year. The CCRC report noted that, aside from the external market figure, the projection is also based on other cybersecurity research by Checkpoint and Orange Cyber Defense, which noted consistent growth in cyber attack and ransom in the past year. CCRC noted that the number of key events in 2023 about cyber threat has been overwhelming and versatile in terms of impact on an organization or government body. It added that even though cybersecurity is not a board-level issue, there is need to be greater involvement at the executive board level by driving cybersecurity risk governance and steering committee to help minimize the risks imposed on the companies or government entity. Kike Lomo Okere, Global Television News.
Thank you, Kikalomo, for that reporting there on business. It's a Friday. Well, Kikalomo will be back here with fresh stories for you on business next Monday. Okay, I have Anthony Momodu here, a senior anchor at Global Television. Thank you, Anthony, for coming on. You're looking so brilliant. You should do a photo session after this.
Yes, especially when the Super Eagles are able to win their next match again.
Okay, that will motivate you to do so, right?
Yeah, because I think I'll be at my happiest moment.
I can imagine.
The Super Eagles are able to win because they're facing a very tough team.
They are, right. But so far, even prior to that face-off, we understand the president is not particularly impressed with their performance so far. Were we expecting anything better than what they've done so far?
Yes, to an extent we are, but at the same time, before the Cup of Nations, before they left Nigeria, there wasn't so much hype. Usually you hear Nigerians say, okay, we expect you to win the Cup of Nations. People are already hyping, okay, who is Nigeria meeting in the finals and all that. But there was not such pressure on the team as to win the Nations Cup. But quietly, people are hoping they'll be able to do something. But remember in 2013, we had similar occurrence where there was no so much expectations from the Super Eagles, but they went all the way and won the Nations Cup. This time around, I think what happened was after the first performance, the last performance against Cote d'Ivoire, where they played very well. We expected Cote d'Ivoire, our rivals, and they're one of the biggest teams in Africa. So the way the Super Eagles played on that day was very, very good. They were coordinated. They dictated the pace of the game. We won 1-0. We expected that when we were going to face Guinea-Bissau, we were going to run over them. But Guinea-Bissau made the game really difficult for us. No wonder they're called the White Dogs. And so that's why it looked like the Eagles didn't play well. But when you play a lesser team, you have to be more wary. And at that point, what matters is getting the result, and we got the result. Because we would have probably lost that game, and if we had lost it or drawn the game, it would have been a whole different story. So I think for me, looking at it from my perspective, I think, yes, they didn't deliver the goods because they weren't clinical, like we said. They created a lot of chances, but they didn't take them. But at the same time, the fact that they were able to create those chances showed that they're a good team.
It's interesting. Now, we're not even talking about preparation. That has always been an issue with us. We say we don't get to start early. Other nations, other teams start in good time. Did we start early enough this time?
Not so early, but the truth is that we know that this team, they've known themselves. They played together for almost 3 years now, so they didn't need so much of introduction. What they needed was the coach to get to know the players, know because every coach comes with his own formation. They've never really stayed together as a team for a long period like they did this period. The other matches they had were just friendly matches, 2 days, 1 day, but this time they've been together for more than a week or two before the Nations Cup. So everybody felt, okay, the coach should have by now know his first 11, second 11, and also the players are beginning to warm up to him as to know how he wants them to play. So I think in terms of preparations, I think they had a good preparations in terms of the time, but in terms of the quality of teams they played before the tournament, I think it's just fairly okay. Not grade A teams like you would have wanted them to play. Big teams like the English national team or the Brazilian national team or the Belgian national team. So based on that, you say, okay, let's give them above average.
The captain of this particular Super Eagles team now, Ahmed Musa, is asking the Minister of Sports, all right, John Eno, to ask the president to kindly come watch them play live. I mean, that could be a spur, or like motivation for them. Was he asking for too much?
I think it's too early to ask the president to come watch you. If you're talking about the finals, then good enough. But you still have to scale through the indomitable.
You have to give him a reason to.
Yes. Looking at Cameroon, we've played them 17 times. They beat us on 3 of those occasions that they beat us. Were in the very important matches in the finals. And playing against Cameroon, you cannot. There are certain teams that seem to always have a way of beating you, no matter how good you play. But even though in the last 4 matches we played them, we're beating them. But for this current squad, I think it will be too early. If we have gotten to the finals and you say, okay, let Mr. President come watch us to inspire us to win the 4th trophy, I think that will be more like it. But this is just the knockout stages. After these stages, you now go to the semi-finals, then the finals, then quarterfinals, then semi-finals, then finals. I think that's when you should be calling on the president
to come watch.
Even though to some people it might look like that's confidence, but at the same time, I think we shouldn't be so confident.
You don't place the cart before the horse.
Because we did that last tournament where a team like Tunisia, who barely could qualify from their group, were the ones that knocked us out. Against all the expectations, we were already looking to the finals where we couldn't, even cross the knockout stages.
Do you think Minister of Sports deflated the motivation of the Eagles, the Super Eagles? That is, when he told them, or at least gave them the impression very clearly, that the president was not impressed with their performance?
I think that for me, I just had that feeling that those words didn't come out from Mr. President. I think it came out from his own mouth, and he was just trying to probably let them know that they should do more. But like you rightly pointed, I think it was more of negative impact than positive.
Very hard on them.
Yes, because you don't tell a team the number 1 man is not impressed. That already puts an extra pressure on them going into this game, because now in their head they are thinking, okay,
how do we impress the president?
So instead of playing to the pattern, to their formation, and to the game at hand, they're thinking of, okay, we want to impress. So you see some players now wanting to overdo, not passing the ball, not playing as a team, but rather wanting to take the shine. And I think it came out wrong from him to say that. Probably he would have said more, we're impressed with how far you've gone, we know you can do better. But actually telling them the president is not impressed with their performance, I think that's very unfair, because other big teams, then what would the president of Cote d'Ivoire tell his team, who are the host nation, and lost funding in front of, and there was protests in the country.
Maybe go to Wuse markets and buy a wheat.
And line the boys to flog them. I think that was a very wrong strategy from the Minister of Sports, and the way it sounded, where it came out from, I think it wasn't. If he really wanted to motivate the boys, probably he would have gone to see them one-on-one, have a talk with them, rather tell them, let the president be the one to talk to them. I think it could have been more motivating if the president had spoken to them directly.
Right.
That would inspire them. But ministers saying the president said there's going to be some back and forth and reservations as regards that comment, and especially if the players or the Nigerian Football Federation have some misgivings as regards maybe some requests made by the team that has not been fulfilled. And the question is going to be, we asked for this, you've not, and you're telling us,
Right. So you do your part.
Yeah, do your part, and let us.
While you're talking the whole time, Anthony, I mean, for the most part, I'm off the top of my head, just imagining Ajere Ngelale, special advisor to the president on media and publicity, coming up to say, clear the air about what the president said I didn't see in this regard. At least
I think it's going to get
let's set the record straight.
If it depends on how we escalate this, it's something, especially if the Eagles do not do well,
right,
and maybe probably lose the match or something, and people start throwing tantrums. The minister definitely will be called out for this statement. People are calm now because nothing has happened, but I think it was a very wrong vibe.
He got off on the wrong foot.
Yeah,
right?
he didn't. The vibe he said, and looking at where he was sitting, he was like chilling, and you're telling people who are hard at work that they're not impressed. And it shows if he was truly a very sporty person, he knows you don't say that to a team. Moving into a very delicate stage and looking at the opposition they're going to meet. You're talking about Cameroon, a very, very strong rival. If you deflate their confidence, then it's not going to do the team any good.
Right. Okay, let's step on our breaks for a minute from sport, because Anthony Mamadou will bring us sports updates shortly. But let's talk about politics and leadership a little. I mean, starting with the FCT here. Just last Sunday, about 5 days ago, Senator Eriti Kingebe, the senator of the FCT, was on live television where she talked about a lot of things around insecurity in the FCT, and then she also did mention the minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike. Some people will say she called him out. I don't know what it is, but I think
it's like speaking truth to power.
Yes. I do know she made continual references to him, right? And then she had talked about how she had made effort to reach him and so on and so forth. And I also had seen a video just at about dinner time yesterday where the minister himself was saying that the senator should step on our brakes for a minute. That's, look, first, that you are the senator of the FCT does not mean you have the powers to determine who I associate with, who I go out with, because there's also the allegation that Nyesom Wike is still more associated with Philip Aduda. He still sees him more like the senator representing the FCT at the Senate instead of Eriti Kingebe and so on and so forth. And he says, look, even the CCTV project they're talking about was not awarded by the FCT, it was awarded by the federal government and so on and so forth. But this is rivalry already, unless we want to lie to ourselves and live in denial. What do you see as the implications of this debate?
I think we have three persons with different personality and ego here. We see Wike, who is a thug-like in nature from the south, who is trying to dominate the FCT, and he's coming with that mindset of a governor, how he governed the River State, and he's trying to bring it to the FCT. If you noticed, in his early days, there were lots of protests in the FCT as regards the way he was governing or administering.
But some people say those who were protesting were individuals who had been exploiting the FCT, and they were afraid now that those channels will be plugged.
In as much as, to an extent, it might be true, but we know Wike as someone who is more of a bully. He believes in dictatorial kind of way when he's governing, and I think to some people they're not very okay with it. Don't forget, the FCT is more like in the northern region. In Northerners, the way they do things are quite different from people from the south side of the country. And Eriti, she's a woman, she's a northern, and she's been in politics long enough, and so she has seen things also. And for Wike is someone who does not believe in women, so to say, like women calling the shots. He feels he's the boss. Like he said, she shouldn't determine who he associates with, but to an extent, she has the right to feel that way because she's the person currently representing the FCT. In as much as Aduda, for me, I feel like Aduda is the one I feel is not being fair. You've played your role. This is the woman in charge now. You should take a back seat, allow her play her role. Don't seem to, because it looks like he's now playing, like we say in local parlance, boy to Wike because he wants to remain relevant. Because when it was his era, I didn't see anybody taking his place or even coming close to the FCT minister because he was in charge. So I think he also is not being fair. He's doing it for his own selfish reason. And for Wike likes being, the boss. So if Aduda, who was there, is playing that role to him, I think he'll warm up to him rather than to Ireti. But Ireti, we know, is also has got principled. She's learned. She's exposed, so she will not want to be seen to be cowed by Wike's tantrums or bully-like administration style. So it's like three different people with three different temperaments, and I think it will be very, very decent and smart of the president to call Wike and these three persons to order for the sake of the FCT and the residents of the FCT. If not, we're going to see whatever the Wike is trying to achieve in terms of the insecurity in the FCT. It might not work because when you have three different people who are supposed to work together to give the FCT what they desire, and they're working at loggerheads, then it's not going to work out. Then Aduda has to take the back seat. He has to realize, okay, if he truly loves his people, then allow her play that role. Unless you're saying you don't feel, because there's this talk in town that she's not from the FCT, so she cannot represent the people of the FCT. I think we need to... But she was massively voted for, from what we understand. We need to get out of that mindset. Let's assume she's not even from the FCT. The lady says she has lived here since 1988. But people don't... In Nigeria, they don't... No matter how long you've lived, we're talking to the spokesperson of Israel Yamo some days back, and he kept talking about someone, an Edo man who came from Lagos, just because he couldn't speak the language, he meant he doesn't have the right to be voted for. As governor. As governor. And that's, for me, it's a very wrong ideology. So I think Wike also, because like I was talking to someone before we came on there, Wike is not someone on the international scene. Wike would not survive with that kind of attitude because he's going to be labeled something different, dictator. And yes, he had worked for him in grassroots politics to the governor of Rivers State. We're talking about national level now. Right. Because if, for instance, Wike tomorrow comes out to say he wants to be president of Nigeria, lots of people from different quarters, we have not just a rethink, but triple rethink about giving him that chance. You know, it's interesting because Wike had said, look, I don't have a problem with this lady, with Senator Kingibe. He says he just got into office. That very day, the human reached out to him and was trying to say, we need to sit and talk. And he says, look, I barely even know my office. I've just been, this is just assumption of office for me. Can I settle in, get to be acquainted with basics around here, and then we can see how we can synergize and all of that. Now, the impression Mr. Wike gives is that he was being, if you like, it was being railroaded, it was being stampeded. There was this pressure from her to let's see, let's talk, let's discuss and stuff like that. He was saying, can we not just take it slowly, one thing at a time, and so on and so forth. But let's leave that for a second. Was it okay for him to already warm up to Philip Aduda? Maybe they were already friends before he became minister. Who knows? Besides, don't forget that both of them are from the same PDP. But the truth is, it's not about friendship now. It's about what the Constitution says. The people voted her in to represent. But he says he didn't go there with Philip Aduda as the senator. He just came there as a stakeholder. He's an FCT resident. I think he past senator of the territory. I think he needs to make her believe that, not just lip service of what he's saying. So his actions should speak. And I think Aduda should also take the back seat. I think he's allow the current senator to do her role. I think he's being, for me, I think he's being selfish. To an extent. If he's your friend, if he's, then you should take the back seat. You shouldn't tag along with him like you don't have any other duties to perform. Right. But let's now talk about how, Nigeria, you are a journalist, you've followed all of this for a while too. We've seen how clash of personalities has impacted very adversely in several ways
the interest of the people, whether it is between a governor and his immediate boss, I mean his predecessor, or between a governor and his deputy, or between a governor and the president, or sometimes a governor and maybe the head of service, or whatever it is. We've seen that happen again. Sometimes the governor and the state chairman of his party, or the president and the national chairman of his party, and things like this. How do we turn this culture around for the better?
I think it's going to be very difficult because of the mindset of
the average Nigerian, right?
Nigerian, and also the leaders. There's this thing of they want you to lick boot them. They want you to. There's this issue of being loyal. They feel you being loyal is when you kiss it. You tend to
you lick their boots.
You lick their boots. Always say yes to whatever they say
without questioning.
Yes, without questioning.
No independence thinking.
Thank you. So if that remains the case, then it's going to be very difficult. For instance, the FCT issue we're talking about, if Philip Aduda was that good, his people would have voted him back to an extent, or would have made a case for him. But they decided to choose someone else, meaning that they were not completely satisfied with the job he had done.
With his performance.
Yes. So why wouldn't he step aside? Why would he still tag along everywhere the minister goes? Because is it that there's something he forgot in office? Is that something he's trying to hide? Because if Ireti says, let's see, that's because she needs to brief you about certain things you need to know before you kickstart. And if you now choose to be with the person who the people rejected against the person who they now want to represent them, then there's a question mark about that relationship or that affair. And why is it taking? We know that the natural course of as human beings, they say, like pose to say man and a woman, there's this natural, connection whenever a man and a woman meet. So why is it suddenly a man and a woman can meet? Is that a man and a man that prefers? So there's just something
not right about this.
There's no right about it. It's either Aduda, because if you look at even the policies he came up with as regards the land, you pay certain amount, or
that's yes, a wiki.
Then you're asking how you came into power to office. Like he claimed, he barely knows his office, and you're already bringing such very strong policies that got people yearly. And we're talking about accommodation, we're talking about housing. This is a very major, policy for you. That means somebody must have engineered that for you. If truly you didn't know the FCT or you didn't know your office, but you came out with such a very stringent, policy, and we saw how that caused a lot of uproar. And the monies they said they realized from that policy, we've not heard anything as regards, okay, this is where the money is going to or whatever.
It's not too early. Can we not just be patient a little and see how the books will be straightened out?
That's I think if there was sincerity, he should be able to tell us this is how much we've realized from so far. Because before you know it, it's going to go swept under the carpet. We're not going to hear anything about it. Then what it means is that behind the curtains, those monies will be trickling into where?
It's interesting, Anthony, because we understand that Wike is of the People's Democratic Party, even though that one is a different discussion for another day, now serving in the ruling party at the All Progressives Congress, the APC. Ireti Kingibe, on the other hand, a senator now, is a member of the Labour Party, right? Do you think that's variable, that element itself is a part of the problem?
Of course it is, because if she was of the APC, I think he would tread more cautiously, knowing fully well that, okay, she's going to have the ears of the president. But right now he feels, okay, Labour Party is not amongst in the equation, and so whatever she brings up or whatever Labour is going to do, they don't have a strong say in the presidency.
Right.
And he is also capitalizing on the trust that Mr. President has in him. And I feel Mr. President did that just to probably, like they say, settle the boys for probably his support or whatever, because I don't want to believe he was the best candidate for the FCT. Looking at other people that were in running for the FCT, especially knowing that the people of the FCT always had reservations of whoever becomes the FCT minister, they always wanted it to be someone from the FCT or someone from the northern region. But bringing someone all the way from the south, I thought Wike would have been able to be more strategic rather than trying to bully his way through everything he wants to do in the FCT.
It's a great, and it's very interesting how this whole thing is playing out today. But let's not also take our eye away from the fact that insecurity, on the final note now, is a big concern in the FCT, even though we are seeing stories now telling us that the security agencies, especially the police, are now recording some success.
I think it's hard for me. I want to take it with a pinch of salt because we're used to that. Every time there's an issue, the Nigerian police suddenly they start having arrests. There was an arrest they made about one Chinasa.
Philip.
He came out to say he's not a kidnapper or whatever. So
does anybody ever admit to it?
To an extent, you know, the Nigerian police force. I've been in Jos one night, what they call Kose in the northern region, Accra. I am some of my friends were going to buy from the house where we live, and just because I was a little bit behind them, the next thing a van just stops, just carries everybody into the van, and the next day we had to go to the police station. Guess what? Just because there was a robbery in the university staff quarters, the police just had to arrest people. So to say they have gotten the boys who carried out the theft. And so we've seen many cases where Nigerian police people arrest people who naturally are not the culprit, but because they want to be seen to get the job done, we see that happen. Look at the recent freeing of those 5 sisters. The question is, how come it was so sudden? How come it was so easy? And besides, and these girls have been there for many days. People could not, find a way to, free them until one was killed, until probably, who knows, if ransom was paid. Then suddenly you arrest this.
The girl's uncle says ransom was paid.
And, okay, ransom was paid. Then you didn't even kill one terrorist when freeing the girls. Not one. You didn't catch one. You didn't reveal where you... Come on.
Okay, it's interesting, but then we need to let you off, Anthony. I would like to say a big thank you to you for spending out some time this morning to talk to us about all of this.
Thank you very much.
All right, so Anthony will bring us a wrap-up of sports now by way of updates. The show returns shortly. Do stay with us.
Hello sport fans, welcome to Sports News Update. The African Cup of Nations host Ivory Coast dramatically qualified for the last 16, just a day after they sacked manager Jean-Louis Gasset. There were major recriminations for the host after a 4-0 hammering by Equatorial Guinea, which left them with 3 points from 3 games in their group. Gasset paid with his job, but Ivory Coast reached the last of 16 courtesy of Zambia's defeat to Morocco, which was cheered across the country. It was to be Zambia and Ghana who saw striker Iñaki Williams return to Atletico Bilbao with a bang against Barcelona, who were the 2 unlucky third-place teams not to progress. While Morocco's 1-0 win over Zambia brought the only goal from Wednesday's games, nobody in Namibia was complaining as their 0-0 draw with Mali saw them reach AFCON's knockout stages for the first time ever. Namibia stunned much-fancied Tunisia 1-0 in their opening group game for the country's first ever AFCON win. A 4-0 drubbing at the hands of South Africa on matchday 2 left them needing a point from their final group match, which they secured in a hard-fought draw. As well as Ghana's dramatic elimination, Algeria were one of the biggest casualties of the group stages, as they were also sent home. Iñaki Williams went straight from being knocked out of the African Cup of Nations with Ghana to knocking Barcelona out of the Spanish Cup. On Monday, he was the substitute as Ghana failed to win their final group game, and on Tuesday, as soon as their fate was sealed, he was on the plane back to Europe. He landed in Paris at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, from where his club had a private jet waiting to take him to Bilbao. It was what 8. With 107 minutes gone of Athletic's epic Copa del Rey quarter-final as a substitute, he ran on to Azia Velibre's cross. His first shot hit the post, but he turned in the rebound to put Athletic 3-2 up. They saw out the second half of extra time with Nico Williams, Iñaki's brother, adding a fourth to eliminate Xavi's Barcelona, robbing him of his best chance to win the trophy he needs to win this season to keep his job into next year. Bayern Munich and Union Berlin's Bundesliga encounter descended into chaos on Wednesday after visiting boss Nenad Belika pushed Leroy Sané in the face, sparking a brawl between the two benches at pitchside. With over 15 minutes left to play and Bayern in the lead, Sané and Belika came face to face by the side of the pitch at the Allianz Arena as Bayern winger looked to retrieve the ball for a throw-in before the Croatian boss pulled the ball away from him. Former Man City winger Sané had swiped his hand at the ball, leading to the pair to square up to one another. Then, in a moment of madness, the Union Berlin head coach inexplicably pushed Sané twice in the face, sparking a brawl pitchside between the two benches. The resulting melee gave referee Frank Willenborg no other option than to send the Croatian manager off for violent conduct, while Sané received a yellow for his role in the incident. The 52-year-old continued to argue his case as he made his way up to the stands and appeared to hit out at a number of Bayern supporters before being calmed down. And talking tennis, Carlos Alcaraz's hopes of a first Australian Open title ended in quarter-final defeat by 6th seed Alexander Zverev. The Wimbledon champion had been in excellent form in Melbourne and threatened a comeback after a slow start, but it was Zverev moving through to the last four thanks to a 6-1, 6-3, 6-7, 2-7, 6-4 victory clinched at 1:19 a.m. local time. In his 7th Grand Slam semi-final, Zverev will take on third seed Denis Medvedev, who earlier battled past Hubert Hurkacz in 5 sets. Alcaraz was heavily fancied to make it an all-top 4 semi-final lineup, but he looked very tight at the start and Zverev took full advantage, barely missing a first serve and striking his ground strokes with power and precision. The German had faced a lot of off-court scrutiny regarding his forthcoming domestic abuse trial. He denies the allegations, but his ability as a tennis player was unquestionable. And that's how we're going to wrap on the Sports News Update. I am Anthony Momodu.